Hey everyone, it's Todd again. This is day 2 of the lovely audio problems with the sad demise of that board. This is the last day. Things will be worked out tomorrow. Enjoy. On today's episode of Minute of the Apes, we find out how wibbly wobbly time really is.
They greenlit the sequel without a story in mind. They just wanted to equal an unexpected gold mine. He said, oh no, as Heston said, I got to go. These are just some of the facts you ought to know as we go. Beneath the Minute of the Apes. Beneath the Minute of the Apes. Beneath the Minute of the Apes.
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies 1 minute at a time. As always, I'm Todd and I've got Richard Sean with me. It's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday.
Hello, Todd.
Hey, everybody.
Yay.
God, all of a sudden this week, when I say things, Sean, it's hello, Todd.
Hey, Todd.
I can't decide if you're Hannibal Lectering me.
What is on?
It's kind of scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so we are here on Tuesday. Let's jump right into it. Sean, tell us what's going
We're
on.
going to start minute 7 with somebody saying that Skipper needs to get some rest, and it ends with Brent saying they might have passed through a Hassline curve. As of minute 7 now, we have 4 living humans, change in count there, 2 dead humans, 1 dead ape, a shrewdness of apes, and a gaggle of humanoids.
And let's listen to our minute.
Just me.
Brad.
Sir,
Did you contact Earth?
I tried to, sir, on a crackle. Skipper, I took an Earth time reading just before re-entry.
What'd you get?
3955.
3,955.
AD.
Almighty God.
Well, we were following Taylor's trajectory, so whatever happened to us must have happened to him.
What about us? Where are we?
Well, in my opinion, Skipper, we've passed through a Hassline curve, a bend in time.
So like we were talking about last minute, Skipper, I guess, has to be the official, unofficial designation for pilots of ANSA ships that then have to crash on alien worlds in the future.
And while we're
That
talking,
we actually know are actually Earth.
and while we're talking,
That's a long way for a title. Fuck.
while we're talking about Skipper, let's go ahead and get the elephant in the room out there. His name is Todd Andrews. He worked with Mr.
His
Ted.
name is Todd.
I like
His
that.
name
Skipper.
is Todd.
Skipper is
He
Todd
worked.
Andrews.
Skipper is Todd Andrews. He worked with Ted Post on a regular basis, appearing in 3 films. They did some TV work together, but 3 films: Hang 'Em High, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, and 73's Baby. He had a film career from 1941 until his death in 1973. He was in the original Heaven Can Wait.
Oh.
Hang on, I'm going to pause. What?
No, just the way you said. Sorry, the way you said he passed. Todd Andrews passed in 1973. Mm-hmm. That's also when Arthur P. Jacobs passed away as well.
So
what happened in 73?
That goes back to my whole theory that I said before when we did it. It was like we kept going, this person, oh, hello, beer. This person, oh my God, they died here. And it was like, if you were on Planet of the Apes, you had to die. And so Todd Andrews did that. He was on the Twilight Zone, another Twilight Zone person. The most interesting thing about him to me, even more than the Ted Post connection, he did a ton of B movies in his early career, and he had an assumed name of Michael Ames that he used on B movies because, from what I could tell, he was rather ashamed of that work, but it kept him working. And it was only later on, getting the exposure through Twilight Zone, that he began to change and actually use his real name.
All right.
I find that weird. I mean, you're on film.
I know.
People are going to see it. They're going to recognize you the minute you do something else, even in a different name.
But I think that back then there was so much studio control, especially back in the 40s, 50s, that what you didn't want to get was to be pigeonholed as only a B movie actor. You wanted a prestige project.
SAG rules had to do with stuff,
Yeah.
like Writer Guild, writing under pseudonyms and stuff like that. Who knows?
So you may have gathered from the dialogue, but it's not expressly mentioned. But our Brent is waving his hands over Skipper's eyes.
Yeah.
Right.
It's mentioned that Skipper says, "Who are you?" or who is that? But what you don't get the sense from just hearing the minute is that he can't see this person. What kind of injury happens when you crash land?
Space blindness.
He bumped his
Space blindness,
head.
Yeah,
I
maybe.
want to see Brent going at Skipper. No, you can't. Obviously, you can't see this on the podcast, but like pretending he's going to punch
Right.
him right in his face, like walk away from his step and then jump at him again to see if he's really.
If it was a
blind.
Mel Brooks movie, he'd get up and do a little dance and things. But that was when I noticed, and I thought, oh, he has no injuries. Why is he blind? Because in the previous shot, it could be that maybe he is sick. Maybe it's something from the crash. Whatever it is,
he could have a broken back and he's been dragged out or something like that. No, he's just lazy because he can't see.
He's blind, yet he has no blood.
There's no burn marks on him. Nothing.
This is already.
His suit is perfectly. There's
Right.
really no suit on.
And this is
on
twice into the film already where it's kind of felt like, and I get the cut the budget, I get the let's do things, but it's almost like no one's paying attention to the story we're telling. Because you talk about stepping into a situation. If you're going to do a medias res, you have to do it. Star Wars works because the
huge
ships
universe,
are flying,
yeah.
They look beat up, and we get in, and it's the middle of a battle. It feels like yes, we're in the middle of a moment that never happened.
I mean, this is
a staged moment.
This is 1971. They had Star Trek. They could have put that little bit of Captain Kirk blood coming down. And every time he got into a punch, there was like that little bit of blood that would come down his lips. They could do something like just a little bit of something.
Even some blood on his eyebrow, anything that looked like he bonked his head. You don't have to put swelling. You don't even have to do the makeup. The blood would say enough.
We're just so critical.
We are.
He blind. We don't know. He on the ground.
There ain't no
He's
dirt on there.
sunburned.
And
There ain't no crash.
I try not to be critical of the film for its production techniques, but there are so many films before this that don't skimp like this. That you can go Rebel Without a Cause. You can go we all these type of films that have already occurred that can have injuries in them and take the time to tell the story. But I guess maybe it really was the economy. We have to get this shot.
Turn it out. We've got a release date for it. Let's go.
And hey, that blood, if you put it on his forehead, that's going to cost me another $25.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to move on beyond it.
But this is kind of the first time we get a kind of a tight shot on Brent.
Yes.
Right?
I'm assuming he's our new Taylor.
We can see how quite handsome he is.
Very pretty
He's
man.
younger, tall, blue-eyed, blonde, all that kind of stuff. I know this sounds kind of odd, but Brent, that's a name you really don't hear anymore.
No.
Like, it's a very unusual,
Unless it's the British The Office.
but do you know, we never hear any Brents anymore. It's kind of
growing up, one of my best friends' names was Trent, and I swear when I would watch this, I was always like, Trent. Huh, I wonder, is it derivative? But you're right. Names like that you just don't hear too often, especially a leading man in a film.
Yeah,
and
right.
is that the reason? But you also don't hear Taylor that often anymore. I mean,
Taylor was his last name.
Taylor
True.
Lautner, come
You're-
on.
Maybe Brent's his last name.
Sean's exposing his true crushes
Wait a
over there.
minute. They were all called by their last name in the last movie, right?
Well, is Dodge a last
I have
name?
no idea.
Taylor was his last name.
And Landon,
George Taylor.
I
So-
don't recall. We're going to have to do some research on
Well,
that.
Brent, and they're just so cash. Hey, Brent.
Right.
What's up, bud?
Now, with that,
Hey, Neil. That just sounds so weird to
Right?
say.
Yeah.
so
Hartzell makes sense for some reason because we used to do Hartzell for a long time. I don't know why. I just call you Hartzell.
my last
Yeah,
name.
but to say "Hey Neil" to Richard just sounds so strange.
I wonder in calling someone a last name if it's having two syllables that makes
Maybe.
it roll off.
I don't know.
It's the same as that, without getting into name talk, with Todd being a first name, my mother struggled like when she was pregnant, what to put behind my name.
Mm-hmm.
And she finally put that as my middle name, which has been the curse of my life. But it was because it was a single syllable.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
We digress.
So the skipper asked him to try to contact Earth, and new person Brent says he couldn't get a hold of anything. That there's
And again, let's go back to our first movie logic. They're supposed to be in the future, a couple thousand years at least. They think they've gone to a distant planet, but they're trying to get in touch. They assume that Earth has just been sitting there unaffected, waiting for a couple thousand years to get their signal.
There is that logic again, but what I did appreciate was that whereas in the last one, Taylor barked off commands to send a signal, but didn't say what it was he wanted sent. There was no true communication. These two people already,
least
to
they're
me,
trying to-
they seem to be in the same situation together. They seem to understand what's going on, what should be done, what's protocol. It's a little different. There are two things that strike me immediately, and I actually have this note for tomorrow, but I'm going to go ahead and touch it here. There are two things. No, because it applies here too. The music we talked about before is vastly different from our original score. It is so bland. It is the obvious strings to querying horns. It's just flat.
Just regular studio music.
Yes. Yeah. But what I did think was better, I already think the acting in this film is potentially better than the first one. It's not so ham-fisted. It's not so obvious that they're trying to do things. There's actual subtlety of their exchanges back and forth.
Well, what I find interesting about that is that specifically Franciscus is a television actor.
Yeah.
He's done some movies, but largely a television actor. And you can kind of tell when you watch television and movie productions who the movie actors are and who the television actors. Mm-hmm. So him giving you some type of sense of subtlety in his actions and the way he speaks is something you wouldn't normally see from a television actor going to movies. Usually the other way around.
Yeah. But, you are going to have the people who can at least transcend it. And the funny thing is Schaffner is known to be an actor's director. And I don't think you can look at Heston's performance and say that there was a direct. Maybe Heston can't be directed. Maybe you can't go to him because he's Charlton Heston.
Maybe that's why they just put him on a horse for 26 seconds at a time, because at least that kills some time with him. Go.
Maybe, but I see subtlety here that I didn't see before. I see nuance in that it feels like that. In the first film, the disdain they had for each other was controlled by the script. It was there. It was obvious. Mm-hmm. This feels like there's immediate respect. And it's simply because he's caring for the man on the ground, and he's saying, I did all these things. And it's the way he's saying it.
True, they're not rude to each other, whereas the original astronauts are actually kind of rude to each other.
Right.
So I found it interesting that he says, I took an Earth time reading just before re-entry.
Yeah.
I like this recognition that there's a difference between Earth time and something else. That there's a standard by which they're following.
Which we saw in the first film, too.
But when we talk about, astronomy, and they talk about this planet and that planet
and
so
dilation,
on, we don't really hear like Earth time ever being used.
Right.
And we finally find out what year that it officially is.
He says that it's 3955.
Yes.
But in the first film, when they leave, they check, and I may actually, he said 3955. It's 39, is it 3928? Or 30, I'm sorry, it's 3978 in the first film.
Uh-huh.
So there is a discrepancy.
So somehow they went back. They ended up there before. That would be an interesting movie if actually this movie took place before Planet of the Apes, 20 years before that. And then at the end of the movie, somehow they show up and then they're old and then Heston shows up. Anyway, sorry.
Let's talk about it from this minute. We saw Taylor and Nova riding off into the desert. We fade. We get this moment. We have no idea if this moment is happening at the same time or not.
We don't.
Whether it's concurrent,
Then I'll save the judgment of that being a mistake until later.
Okay.
But it's a discrepancy. It's an immediate one of those, wait, didn't they say this in the first film? Your assumption is that we're not going back in time. That your assumption is that we're seeing something linear because they've not done any time jumps other than they crash landed and it's a different era.
Exactly. Just based on this one particular moment, we had a fade, we come back on this crash, and they actually bring up Taylor in this moment. We're following Taylor's trajectory.
Right.
So clearly we now know that they were following something with him. Were they trying to rescue him? Were they just on the same mission?
Again, they never defined what the mission was from the first movie, so they're going into the future. How are they supposed? How are people from the past?
They were going to go screw Stewart and make the space population.
Make space babies on the new planet in the future. But how does Earth in the past, a year later, know that there's a problem 5,000 years in the future? So we need to send somebody to rescue them.
Okay, but you can also take this logic simply. They blasted off, and perhaps that ship is supposed to send out a beacon of some sort, and the beacon stopped. It could be that. It could be and it was simply a beacon. They knew that they were going to go this way, but they should have gotten some communication, and they simply went, "We've lost him. Go look for him."
It just
yeah.
I totally kind of laughed at the screen when Skipper repeats the lines out, 3,955, and Brent goes, AD.
AD.
And
Yeah,
Skipper
very
goes,
important.
Almighty God, that's not what it stands for. I was like, no. What?
But yeah,